Hey everybody, Bill in Virginia, and welcome back to another episode of Model Railroading Adventures with Bill. Today I'm going to do a layout tour in celebration of completing all basic scenery on this 4x16 quasi-modular layout. Those of you that have been following me know I've been doing a lot here recently on getting buildings done, so I'm just going to kind of walk through the entire layout real quick and highlight a few things. So over on this area, this industrial area has been the focus of my most recent videos. I bought a bunch of railway or railroad design associate kits years ago, put them together, and then just recently painted them. I'm still working on detailing scenes in and around the facilities here, and that's going to continue. A model railroad is never done, no matter how far along we have the basics on this, and mine is no different. I'm still going to be adding details as I go. I have no intention of changing the layout up or tearing it down anytime soon. This layout started about 4 years ago with the first section that's over there, and you can see the split in the background scenery. That marks the first 4x8 section. This 4x8 section started about a year and a half later, and here we are 4 years later, and I've got most of the basics done on it. I have come in and done a lot of detailing. I've added a little bit of static grass in a few places. Just small areas. I probably have maybe 10 square inches total of static grass on this layout. Over on this way, details make the scenes. Little things, just things from your junk box make things look so much better, and they stand out. Road crossings, having small ramp ups to the tracks, ramps down, to kind of make it look as realistic as you can. A lot of action on a railroad that's making money, and my railroad, still set in the 1950s, is making money. It's still generating revenue. While truck traffic has picked up, rail traffic is still dominant for getting materials in and out of industrial areas. Right in this area is one of my favorite parts of the layout, where I've got triple diamonds, three-way switch that's under the train right there. Multiple tracks. It's a spaghetti bowl, but it is a spaghetti bowl with purpose. And I purposely, designed it this way. If you look at railroads today, you don't see this kind of trackage in many areas. Maybe around stations where you have passenger service, you're going to have crossings, you're going to have different things. But if you look in Sanborn fire insurance maps, from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and even some in the 50s. And you look at old industrial parks and areas like that, you're going to see track work like this. You're going to see where the rails crisscross going everywhere, because that's how things got in and got out of businesses. You didn't have the amount of semi-traffic, so rail was king. So I had fun doing this particular area here, and it offers me a lot of switching opportunities. Coming up through here, the fuel oil facility, was a fun one to do as well. This is where I got hooked on dull coat and the Tamiol flat clear. When I was doing the tanks, they had the plastic gloss to them. I did weathering on them, but it just still didn't look dull enough like in reality. So some shots of that clear flat, and voila, I've got some dull, but still slightly shiny metal looking tanks that set the scene off pretty well. This area, I've got a crosswalk going between the station up over to the heavy and light maintenance areas. That is actually prototypical. You can look on YouTube and in railroad books, and occasionally you'll see where they put planks down for people to get from one side of a yard to another. So modeling it in here helped hide a seam between the two sections, because the two pieces of the layout right here, do come apart and are completely separate. Then vegetation helps hide other parts of that seam, makes it look pretty good in my eyes. Coming over in this way, the engine service facilities, a lot of details, a lot of odds and ends, a lot of junk, a lot of things you would find around where a lot of heavy work is going on. You know, that particular crane is a little bit too big for the purpose that I've got here, and I do have a kit that I'm going to be putting together at some point and changing out that particular crane. It looks nice, but it just doesn't fit in for the scenes that I'm doing here. One thing that I wish I would have done is I would have thought out a little bit more on the power pole right at the seam. You know, I've got my lines dangling and no power pole over on this side. You know, so I'll trim the lines at some point and maybe put a pole right there, maybe not. We'll see. But this area is fun, and you know, if you can kind of see a little bit inside, I detailed inside the buildings, even though I don't see inside those structures. You know, it just adds character because you can kind of look through the windows and you can see that there is things inside the the service shops. So that's a fun one to do. You know, over by the passenger station on the other side, you know, I started to do scratch-built trees, and I've got a number of them sitting over there. You know, 4 of the big ones that I've put together. Those were in the same time that I did these scratch-built trees. These 2 big ones right here, the deciduous, and then those 2 conifers that are up over the back of the roundhouse. You know, I found that if you're buying trees, you can get a really good variety of manufactured trees up to about 8 inches. And that's about it. You know, that seems to be the limit for boxes that manufacturers tend to do. So I've built 10, 12, 13, 14-inch trees from scratch and found that it is extremely economical. It is extremely pleasurable to sit down and build your own. Something that I'm going to be doing in the next layout. All of my trees are going to probably be scratch built. You know, maybe a few little ones here and there, but you know, scratch build is the way to go. Still got a lot of detailing to do. You know, in here again, basic scenery is done, but detailing like pipes coming off tanks, coming off the water tower. Little things I will add to the scenes, just again, kind of make them pop a little bit more. You know, some barrels, drums, odds and ends that you would find on the ground around the buildings. You know, the turntable and the roundhouse weathering were things that I did in the last video. So I've got those facilities pretty well done. You know, something that I wish I would have done is, you know, if I had more space, you know, build out like a little gantry, a little crane, and maybe some piping coming off of the roundhouse so I could show a little bit more, you know, like a service area in and around the shop. But, you know, it is what it is. It's 4 feet across, and I didn't really have a whole lot of space. You know, coming over this way, details again, the little Boy Scout camp, you know, precariously close to the railroad track. Their little bonfire pit, little benches, all those kind of things are fun to watch. You know, guys still are playing checkers out behind the shop. Right in here is where my staging comes in. So pulling back just a little bit, you can see my staging yard, a 3-track yard located on top of a movable table. I use drawer guides so that I can move this out and in. Down at the feet, I've got wheels under this, and you can see the wrench where I also have adjustable bolts so that I can level it. Because as I move the main layout around the garage, my floor is not even, so having some adjustability on that is absolutely necessary. This 1-by that you see in front, that holds the piece up because I do have it mounted on hinges at the legs, so it can fold and it locks in place down low, so that when I move all of the layouts as far as I can get up against the wall and other things over there, this will fold out of the way. The layout can run, you know, can actually move across and over it, minimizes the amount of space that I use. You know, so I have good luck with this. You know, I'm a one-man show on this layout. So if I'm running my trains and I'm using the staging yard, you know, I plug it in. If I want to move and switch tracks, I do have to unplug and plug in for the different power leads. But again, a one-man show is good enough for me. Gives me exercise walking around the layout, and I have a good time with it. Real quick before I jump over to the other side, looking at this backdrop, I've used N scale, prints essentially, and then I mounted them on like some poster board material to give them a little bit of depth. But the N scale, that close to the HO tracks, gives it forced perspective, a little bit of N scale detailing, trucks, power poles, some trees that kind of go down in towards the background, give it, again, a little bit of depth, makes it look pretty good. I still have a little bit of work to do on the backdrop. Where I get into the tree line, some of the close-up trees, I will eventually paint a little bit of white glue on it and add some ground foam and some other foliage just to kind of give it a little bit of a 3D feel, kind of like what I did over on my N scale layout a while back. And again, I had videos of that. Same for this particular backdrop. I did a depression for the coaling yard and kind of made it so that the backdrop ties in with that, with like a junkyard going down. One of the exits for the coaling yard actually goes through the junkyard, so I've got like an open gate there. So I think that works pretty well. Again, I'm going to be needing to add some material to the backdrop just to kind of blend it in. Again, HO scale backdrop buildings so that I've got a little bit less forced perspective, just to kind of make it look like a couple of buildings that are clustered. I did, after finishing up the turntable, come back in and paint the coal company building and weathered it, just to give it some more flair. I did also do some additional work over here on this little building. I had a tin roof on it originally, and it just did not look that good. It was one of my first attempts at it. So I came back in, I painted it, I added some decals in some different areas just to kind of make it look like it's an old shop that's been there for a very long time. So let's jump over to the other side here for a minute and take a look at what I've got going on over there. So one thing before I start talking about this side and just kind of doing a walk down, just a minute or two here on my backdrops. Again, folks that have been following me for a while know that I have minimal space in my garage. I've got a 2-stall garage. I have my 4 by 16 foot HO scale layout, which has 42 switches on it here. And that also shares space with a 3 by 15 foot N scale layout. All of this is portable because I still have to get a car in here occasionally, but not very often. But if I need to, I can open the door and I can get the stuff in. So everything that I've got in my garage is on wheels and it's portable. I can move things around very quickly. This particular layout on the HO scale, you'll notice that I've got spin knobs on everything. I can take this layout apart if I need to. The top piece can lift off of the base, and the base can actually fold up into about a foot wide by about 3 foot long and about 38 inches high thing that I can carry. So if I ever did want to take this to a show, or if I ever move and I want to take the railroad with me, it's not going to be that hard to do. But the backdrops, I was kind of starting on that and then got into other things here, are also portable, so I can take them off and I can move them. So they're two-sided. So this side with the coaling yard goes on this side. I go over on the other side and I've got large buildings, and this piece will go down over by the engine house on the opposite side. Likewise, the far side that has the N-scale buildings on it for the forced perspective, that particular piece, I still actually have some work to do on it, but that will go up over here on this side of the HO scale layout. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip these backdrops around. Each of these weigh about 2 pounds, and it takes, really it only takes a couple of minutes. I've got 2 quick clamps. I undo them, pick them up, move them over, clamp them in place, and I'm ready to go. So hang on just a second, I'll be right back. So the backdrop is now in place on the opposite side of the layout. Really, this was 2 minutes to do the switch on this. Likewise on this side, I still have to come back in, and over here I still have backdrop work to do. I need to have some background buildings and some other scenes added. I'll get to that at some point, as well as adding a little white glue and a little ground foam just to kind of give some texture again to some of the more near trees to kind of give it that 3D and forced perspective look. On this side of the layout, in addition to doing the industrial area, a while back I added in more foliage. You look at scenes like this with the sea foam, the super tree material, and wow, that stuff is great for adding in small details, small trees, just to kind of make it look like brush. This is another area where I put in just a little bit of static grass, again, just in spots on the layout, just to kind of give it some texture. Did come in and added a crane to this little loading dock scene that I added not too long ago. Also added in more odds and ends, some stacks of pallets in different areas, a few more trucks, a little bit more traffic kind of moving through, just to give it more of a feel that it's, a business and operating. Coming along, this building noted, I came back in, painted it, added gravel to the roof, put a little frame around the blue coal sign just to make it look like it's been a deliberate piece of advertising. I like how that turned out. Over here is my only water feature on the HO scale layout. I had a couple of pipes, even though you really can't see it from this angle, I know where they're at and I can see them. Like a culvert that had collapsed and get a little bit of standing water. A few domesticated ducks kind of are hanging out, a little bit of lilies. This water feature I had to replace once. I used Woodland Scenics, instant water. First time I poured it in, I didn't have it sealed well enough. And it reacted with the foam, and after a while, it looked like I had captured like an underground methane explosion in process because the water had a huge boil on it. There was a duck on the side of it, and it looked like it was just getting ready to burst. Kind of a cool little detail, but I opted to rip it all out and do it with some different, I think it was Envirotech water, and no issues. Looks good, and I'm quite happy, and my ducks are safe. Moving across, excuse the power cord. My garage has a box up top that I'm getting my power from. On the back side of the station, depending upon how I look at it, I could see in for the parking area, a lot of brush, a lot of trees growing along the property line for the coal yard, little thickets where you can kind of look through. Doing your own trees, if you've never scratch built a tree, do it. You will have a little bit of initial investment in materials, but wow, you can make some really cool trees at really reasonable cost. So these 4 big trees that are right in here are ones that I scratch built. Didn't take very long at all to do them, short period of time, you can scratch build a lot of trees, which, let's see if I can zoom in. All of these are O-scale trees that I've built just to practice my techniques on. They're going to go into my ON30 layout, which I will be starting to build here fairly soon. That middle shelf, all the way across the top, has O and ON30 equipment and materials in it. So I'm getting closer to the point where I'm going to start building that. I've still got another project or two to do first, and then I'll get on that one. But coming across over here, team track. Boy, if you got room, put in a team track. Gives you a lot of switching opportunities. You can see how those buildings look in the background behind the maintenance shops. It looks like they belong there. They fit into the scene. The colors are good. Makes it look nice. Coming across this way, figures, always add figures in if you've got them. That just brings scenes to life. And I've still got to add a lot more figures as I get time and opportunity to do so. One thing you may have noticed is on the last video when I was doing work over here on the turntable and the roundhouse, I had my locomotives stopping to coal up. So the coaling tower had a cheap little chute on it that really didn't look very good. So I got was a granite line kit Made that up quick, added that to the building. You know, gives it some nice detail and it looks like it fits there. Let's see what else have I got over on this side. You know, my maintenance of way equipment. I always enjoy having cranes and support equipment for maintenance services. You know, this is a small area. I've got a lot more equipment than this, but you know, it's fun. You can have some old stuff on display. Makes it look like, again, the railroad's busy and the railroad is working. So one other thing on this side to talk about real quick is that when I originally thought about this layout and started to build it, again, my intent was switching. I did not want to do continuous loops. I did not want to have, you know, trains chasing their tails around a 4x8 and then a 4x16. Again, my own personal preference. On, you know, on my end scale, that's exactly what they do, but I've got more room to run them out and I'm having fun with that. But when I was originally thinking about this, I figured, well, you know what, it's a small switching layout. I'm going to be running small engines. I'm going to be running, you know, 040, 060s in steam and then some small diesel switchers. As I got into this, I found I like bigger equipment. You know, I like bigger switch engines, road engines, you know, bigger steam. And while I still run smaller equipment, you know, for switching, like what I've got here, my little 44 tonner, and then I've got other steam locomotives that are not on the layout at this time. I like running the bigger stuff, and I wish I had made the tracks before the switches a little longer. Because right now I can do like that 44 tonner or the 060 with one car, and I can switch them into different areas of the layout. If I would do it over again, I would rework this area and I would move these switches up maybe a full foot so that I could get at least 2 cars behind a bigger road engine to do some switching, and then I would of course have to rework some of the switches in here, but I could do that, but I didn't. You know, and that's the one thing I wish that I had done differently on my track. Otherwise, my track works really well. The layout works really well. It's fun to operate. And on the other side, I gave myself a little bit longer, but still not long enough. Now, when I switch the layouts, when I take this piece and it goes onto the far side and that piece comes over here, then I have more space and I can switch it easily. You know, it's easier to operate, but again, just lesson learned, something that you know, I do different later in the future. You know, this layout is a DC layout. Got a Control Master 20 down there that powers it, and just real basic electronics, real basic blocking system. You know, one-man operation. I don't need it to be super complicated or super extensive. I isolate, you know, the one 4x8. I've got another sub panel down there that works for the second 4x8. I did put in boxes where I can plug in my tethered throttle on that side and this side, and the same locations on the other side of this section, so that when I do move the sections around, the throttle there, if this goes to the other end, that throttle will come down to this location, because the other piece of the layout would then be on this side, so that I can run it and operate it well, and I have fun. You know, I think that's the main goal for anything in model railroading, for any of us, is to enjoy our layouts. Have fun, look at everything as a learning opportunity and an experience to do some fun stuff and see what the result is. And again, not be afraid to redo things, you know, if they don't work out. And I've done a lot of different things on pieces of this layout to get it to where I'm satisfied. But that's a little bit of an overview on the HO scale layout. What I am going to be doing here is I'm going to be putting plastic tarping over this layout and the N scale layout, because I'm going to be doing some work over on that side, and you can't see it, but that bench that's under the cabinets I'm going to rip out, and I'm going to redo that entire area to give me a little bit of better storage, a little work area, but then be able to roll the N scale layout completely up under those cabinets without having to slide it onto the countertop, which is how I built it originally. That's going to make it much easier for me to move so that I can push that layout up into its store position very, very quickly. It's just take a matter of seconds. This layout would then move up against it. And by doing that, this whole layout here would end up being pretty much, I can move it almost 4 feet, almost for the full length, so that I still get a good half of the garage. Once I get all of that done, then I'm going to start building some bench work for an ON3 layout that will go in here. That will be a little bit smaller than the HO scale layout, but a little bit bigger than the N scale layout. That one will have sort of a logging theme to it, running, ON30 Bachmann equipment, which I've got already, and lots of trees, lots and lots and lots of trees and lots of details. So that's going to be my next big project, but I've still got a lot more to do on the HO and the N scale. So anyway, I'm going to let you go. Keep having fun on your layouts. Until next time, take care.